go refresh this. Yep, I see it coming through. All right. Good evening, everybody. I'm Jacob Daniel. I'm here with the LP Mises Caucus PA with my co-hosts Matt Rickline, Adam Nutter. We got a guest host tonight filling in for our guy Rob, Mark Bazzacco, and we're excited to have our guest tonight, which is Jenn Moore, the newly elected chair of the LPPA. Jenn, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah. So Jenn, just if you could just give us a little like 2-3 minute intro just about yourself, your background, how you joined the party, got involved, and what brought you to libertarianism and the things that you care about.
Absolutely. Well, I came to the party. I actually came to libertarianism, in the mid-aughts. I left the Republican Party in 2006, but I came to the Libertarian Party in 2017 when I came to the state convention. I got very drunk that night. It was rough. Mark Bazzacco was one of the people that I hung out with, but I had a really, really good time. And I swore I would never run for public office and I would never become an officer in the party. Well, that fall I was elected to township auditor, and the following year I became the Eastern vice chair. I decided to run for party office because I really felt that we didn't have enough of a focus on elections. We went in Montco, 4 of us ran for office in 2017, and 3 of us were challenged by the Republicans. They tried to throw us off the ballot. Mark and I actually won our case and maintained the ballot. Joe Van Wagner was thrown off, unfortunately, because he had a fatal error. But from there, I became the Eastern vice chair. Things were rough. We didn't really have a working website. We didn't have a working database. We weren't bringing in a lot of money. We've resolved a lot of those problems with the team that we have now, and just, getting on the national city CRM. And, there's been a lot of great things that have happened the past couple of years. In that time, I helped organize 11 counties in the East. I ran for Auditor General myself in 2020, which is not my niche, but, somebody needed to do it. So I did it, and, all 4 of us qualified for minor party status. And, then this last time around, I decided to run for chair, and here we are.
Yeah. That's a common thing I hear from a lot of people, which is like they joined the party and said, I'm never going to do X. And then it's like, there's almost like this silent draft that happens whenever someone says, I'll never do X, and we push them into it.
I didn't hold out as long as I wanted to.
Can I ask what made you leave the Republican Party to go to the Libertarian Party?
I felt that they weren't small government enough. In fact, I was in a meeting and they were doing just a lot of kind of like soldier war worship type stuff. And I don't really get into the philosophy that often, but the foreign wars are probably my biggest libertarian issue. If there's one thing that I get really fired up about, it's the military industrial complex. And, it was just one of those things. I lived in the Midwest. A lot of people in my hometown, to get out, they were service members. So, there's a lot of nationalism and pride in that. And I understand that, but it's really difficult for me. And the Republican Party there, that's what they were all about. So it wasn't the right place for me. It wasn't a good fit.
I like that you mentioned that 2017 when we all ran for office, because I really think that was a huge growing period for a lot of us in Montgomery County to take in to the state level and really, we really learned a lot that day.
We sure did.
Hiring lawyers, raising money. I think that's a big part of where the LPPA started turning into a political party. We used to do it really well, and then we stopped for years. The old guard kind of taught us things. I remember Richard helping us with that a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, it was, all of us went on to, take the lessons learned and become, activists in our own right. Mark, you've run for office just about every year since then and, and gotten ballot access by yourself and never been challenged again. You've helped so many other candidates get on the ballot. And I have too through the Molten Maneuver, but, I know that you've recruited a lot of people and, you went on from there to, manage Ken's campaign. And we just learned a heck of a lot that year. And I think that it sparked the fire in all of us to, continue to build that skill set.
What exactly is the Molten Maneuver for people who do not know?
Yep. This was Chuck Moulton's brainchild, and we have this quirk in election law here in Pennsylvania where after the primary results are tabulated, we have a 5 or 6 week window where we can look for places on the ballot where offices are uncontested. And if we put a libertarian on the ballot, they will most likely win. In 2017, Chuck had his list, and I was the only one who really took advantage of it and ran. So in 2019, I promised I would help him. And with Wes Benedict, we sent out, 46 or 4,700 letters. It was just a few of us working on the project. We did have some help at the very end with, the state board helping us stuff some envelopes. But, the vast majority of it was us paying for it, just like trying to prove that this worked. And we ended up winning 47 elections. This year, we're hoping to ramp it up and win at least 100, which I think is conservative. I'm seeing these list guys that we're pulling, like we're doing it right now. We already have Carbon County ready, Matt, and I know that I'm so sorry that we never got a chance to talk over the weekend, but I've got about 200 letters for your county that I want to show you and go over because we've got, they're ready. As soon as I print them, I can put them in the mail. I just want to touch base and make sure that, we're on the same page, and because I'm helping you, you're not helping me, right? This stuff is done at the county level. But we've got places in this state where we've got 4 out of 4 council seats open. And if we can recruit 4 libertarians, we're going to have a controlling vote. We'll have 4 out of the 7. We'll actually have a gold borough. So it's really exciting. And these people go on to win, to build relationships with their communities and hopefully win bigger elections, contested elections later on. But, putting someone actually serving in public office and, showing what libertarians can do, that's a really, really big deal. So I'm really excited about the project.
Yeah, that was, and that's something I know people talk about a lot, is that PA has, through that a lot of elected libertarians, which, it's, obviously not as the same as, like, we're not running these races head to head with the duopoly parties yet, but it is a nice statistic to cite because it gets people kind of like perking, like it does invoke their attention when they see those numbers, I think. What are your focuses going to be in your first year as chair? Like, what are the things that you're really hoping to do in the LPPA to help keep building on the momentum that we have?
Sure. The role of chair is very well defined in the bylaws. I mean, it's really, and what I'm supposed to do is more than enough. Really, my job is to run meetings, which is, we have 39 board members now. So, 40 with me. So running meetings in and of itself is going to be rough. But after that, it's my job to assist the vice chairs and to assist the subcommittees. So really, it's just a matter of, getting some of these subcommittees. All the subcommittees are meeting and they all have people on them that's different than things have been in the past. They don't necessarily all meet monthly. But personally, I would really like to see a better social media strategy where we're putting things out daily. We have real campaigns running. I would like to, boost up our internship program. But again, this isn't me, it's, our team. There have to be a lot of people that, go into this. I would like to see legal action more active, because when we do get ballot challenges this year, I would like to have a homegrown team that can at least advise people whether or not they have a valid case or not, rather than them having to go straight to a lawyer and spend the money on it. So really it's just a matter of, lighting a fire under these committees, if I can. Like I said, they're all volunteers, but I think that we have excited people and excited new people who want to do this stuff. And just talking to everybody, I mean, you guys have ideas that I never would have thought of. And I'm hoping to harness some of that energy and put some of these people into these groups.
Yeah.
Who exactly is the we that you're talking about, like for igniting the fire?
Well, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I'm meeting with you guys right now, is because I see in this group, in the Mises Caucus, some of the future leaders of this party. I would love for you guys. I know that Jacob wants to be on media relations, and I intend to ask somebody to move that at our next board meeting. I know that Mark wants to set up an events committee, and that's going to be on the agenda too. So when I say we, I'm talking to you guys who are here on this call with me, but also just all of the new people who have come in that want to be integrated and be a part of this group. Go to your counties first. That's where things happen. But we will find a job for you if there's something you're interested in that you want to do.
Yeah, so that I think brings me to a question that I wanted to ask, because those who maybe are like living under a rock might not know this, but I think most people know that the PA convention was a little bit contentious to say the least, and a lot of us came out of it and were very frustrated with how things went, and I don't want to make this about let's go back and kick that dead horse. I think some things are just better left in the past, but I did want to ask you about just kind of like some of the like these rivalries and these like the drama and the like the anger and rivalry within the party, and I think this is a national thing, but also here in our state of PA. I mean, what are your thoughts on like some of the contentiousness around like the Mises caucus with both like maybe some of the other caucuses, or just like the Mises caucus with the party in general, and just like some of the hostility and stuff, just kind of broadly speaking, what's your take on it?
Well, it's the convention was probably the most difficult day I've ever had as a political activist. I mean, it was a bad time. I don't think anybody who was there had fun. If they did, it certainly wasn't me. I never expected 180 not to be waived. I know that I've taken some criticism for not speaking on behalf of those people. Like, it never really occurred to me to stand up and tell the delegation how they should vote. It just didn't really cross my mind at the time. Maybe that's, a bad thing, but, I can't tell libertarians what to do or how to vote. Any rising votes that you saw out of me wasn't because I was trying to silence people, but it was because I saw the numbers and I didn't think that we were going to get 30 or 40 votes to change what happened. Not to rehash all of that, but, as far as the rivalry, I think that we could all extend each other a little bit more grace. I saw some things last night in my county that I didn't agree with, and I let the chair know that I didn't agree with the decision, just as I'm sure they will let me know when they don't agree with my decisions. But that was that. And, I don't want to continue that conversation. It was one vote that I didn't agree with that I would have done differently, and we move on. As far as, the rivalry, I don't think that we need to have the rivalry that we have. I think that there have been misunderstandings along the way. I think that we've all done things that we can apologize for. I know that I've done things that I've regretted and apologized for. I know that I've grown as an activist over the past couple of years and would not react in the same way I maybe did a few years ago. I do think that, a lot of it gets blown out of proportion. And I don't think the pandemic helped, because none of us were able to sit in a room and have a beer together.
So, just like to kind of a little bit to backtrack to the convention, while you talk about unity and the divide and rivalries going on in this party, why is it that the state party and you have accepted because many of our followers have been wondering about this, why you talk about unity, but have accepted an endorsement from the Cathedral Caucus when their sole purpose is to troll and literally divide the party and make Mises look like the most terrible people?
I did not accept an endorsement from the Cathedral Caucus. I had no idea that flyer was going into the bags until I saw it in the bags. Like, that was not something that I accepted. I did accept the endorsement from the Radical Caucus, for the Pragmatic Caucus, and the Socialist gave me one, and, I gave him the nod and, thanked him for it. But the Cathedral was not. I don't know that much. I mean, I know a few of the people here in PA who are like publicly the face of it, but that's not really something that I'm involved with.
What do you think we can do to stop this so we don't have people who are consistently trolling us and trying this, whether what side you're on, that is actively trying to divide the party, and like from outsiders and newcomers coming in and they see this, they're like, what the hell is this about? Right. And then they just see a whole bunch of infighting, because having a public face like that is constantly bashing other libertarians is giving an entirely wrong message to everybody, and it's very misleading.
I don't think that I can stop people from making pages like that online, especially when, we don't know who they are. I follow, some of it. I've seen some of the posts. Actually, Mike Heiss brought a few other ones to my attention that I wasn't even aware of. I am aware that it's going on, but, I'm open to suggestions, but, personally, I don't know that there's much that, I can do about a Facebook group.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. I do think one thing that, like, going into the convention, like, something that I was a little personally frustrated with was, like, it just didn't seem like there was this goodwill going in to kind of, like, at least to say, like, even if because, like, we're not always going to agree, and I think that's reasonable. Mm-hmm. But it seemed like there was almost, from my perception, it seemed at the time like a purposeful leaving out of the Mises Caucus from any mention from the state party, but both in the newsletters and in things going out beforehand, kind of talking about like things that PA had done, and they were thanking a lot of people, and it just, it's like, I mean, it's not that I'm trying to say that the Mises Caucus has like single-handedly done everything, by no means. Like, there's a lot of people who aren't in the Mises Caucus who have done good work, and I don't want to take anything away from those people, but I can understand why, like, a lot of our followers, and even me, kind of went into that convention and just in general kind of feel like, that there's not a lot of people who are willing to like, who are recognizing like what the Mises Caucus has done, and even here in PA, I mean, we've helped signed up hundreds of new members to the party, and we've paid for, like, we were offering to pay for speakers and had paid for speakers for events. We've had working with people in specific counties to help get things set up, helping with candidates. Mark does a lot of work. Rob does a lot of work. So it just seems like from a lot of people that like there was just no recognition and like saying, hey, the Mises Caucus is a key player here in the state, and like let's highlight like any of the things that they've done.
Jacob, do you mind if I jump in here? Mind if I jump in here before Jen answers that? Because it's a lot of that's beating a dead horse, and I mean, Jen, if you want to answer, that's fine. But I think we're in a position now where what happened. We all know what happened. We've talked about it, press, and I think it was more valuable use of our time how we make things better moving forward. I think there's been plenty of discussion of what went wrong leading up to the convention. But I think we have a valuable opportunity here to fix things moving forward. I'd rather hear suggestions. What we do better next time, what we do better this time, everything else. On that note, real quick, to wrap back up to the Molten Maneuver, is there a way, has the party set something up where we can earmark funds that campaign?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mark, you're really breaking up. I'm actually going to, I'm drafting an email right now asking for donations for it. I mean, if you wanted to make a donation, you can just do it at, lppa.org/donate, and make sure that you put in there that it's for the Molten Maneuver. We're hoping to spend about $8,500. That'll give us about 20,000 letters. We have just some great deals with, a mailing house and bulk rate postage that is going to be a lot cheaper than it's ever been in the past. And, going back to the previous question, I really appreciate that, Mark. I did try to mention you guys. I mean, I know I didn't do it overtly, but in my Eastern Vice Chair report, I did acknowledge it. I really didn't know how much to put in there. In my original report, I had named you directly. I really would like to sit down with the Mises leaders and look at statistics, because I think that, we can't share each other's data, but, I can see where I think, you guys have brought members in, and you guys can see where you think you have brought members in. And I would like to have that conversation and, acknowledge that. But that being said, the caucus and the part, like caucuses influence parties, but the caucus and the party are kind of two separate things. We want caucus members to be in the party, but, as far as like acknowledging a particular caucus, especially since you guys are tied to a PAC, there are like coordination issues and things, especially with federal candidates, that I'm actually seeking legal advice on, to make sure that we don't get anybody in trouble. It's a part of law that I just don't understand very well. And with the PAC connected to it, that's why I just am asking everybody to be patient with me on, accepting, certain types of conversations about speakers and things going forward. Because especially if you have a presidential speaker, and there's like joint fundraising activities and stuff, like you can start to getting into like, legal, like, gray waters there. So, it's not that I don't want to work on it. Well, personally, I don't want to work on it because I don't care about speakers. Like I really could care less. Mark can tell you that I wasn't really involved in that part of the convention at all. I do think that the speakers that we have should be even and that everybody should be represented and that that's important. But that will be up to people other than me, most likely, because when it comes to conventions, I care about making sure there's enough time for our business meeting. I care about fundraising, and, we just all have our niche, and that's, kind of mine. So, my thing will be trying to keep a convention on track and making sure that we have time to get through bylaws and all that good stuff, because I think there's going to be some good bylaws, proposals this time around and some needed changes. So
just to kind of backtrack a little bit, like what exactly do you mean by we can't obviously share information? Because I understand like it from like the caucus level, but at the same time, we have people who may be part of the caucus who has that information that is also like on a committee, whether it's county or state level information, to where I don't mean
that we can't share, like, we have to be careful about what kind of events and fundraising we coordinate, because of, the federal PAC issue. And I think that is probably less an issue than I'm making it. I think that will probably be okay, but we need to make sure that we, are legal with that. As far as like, I'm under like NDA requirements that I can't share like our membership list with a PAC, right? And anybody who is into our CRM has those NDAs. I would assume that you are with a caucus. I would assume that you guys are also not going to share your membership list with me. Aggregate data, we can certainly talk about and, look at, how many members you've estimated that you've, added, versus how many we estimate. It's tough because we can relate a lot of that stuff back to our mailings. And I can relate some of it to the new counties that have been built. But there definitely is, a gap there where we don't, know exactly where the people came from. I know that there's ways to set up links within our database where, like, if they signed up, like through the caucus, we can track that. So, it might be a good idea to put some of those tools in place so that we can better track it and give credit where credit's due to anybody who wants to try to bring in membership.
So then, if giving credit where credit is due, why has there been an extreme lack of credit given towards the people at Mises and an extreme discouragement against the Mises caucus?
Well, I don't know that that's something that I have done. I'm
not saying you have, but right. Whether you have or not, how do you think we can change that moving forward?
I think that we can find projects. I think that we can find projects to work on together. You guys know that the Molten Maneuver and these elections are important to me, and I know that messaging campaigns are very important to you. So one of the things that, when we were sitting out in Pittsburgh kind of brainstorming was that, maybe with, the proper vetting questions, we can find candidates who are really excited about running for office and don't just want to run for auditor, but maybe want to run for supervisor in a contested race too. And then maybe we can ramp up some of those messaging campaigns so that we can get some of that out there.
I have 2 questions. Hopefully my microphone's working better here.
You sound better now, Mark.
Okay. So one thing is there's this whole misnomer that keeps going around that the Mises Caucus isn't really that fond of running candidates and stuff like that, and that they're all about messaging stuff. I'm kind of confused where that comes from, because a lot of my conversation inside the caucus is mostly related to candidates. Not a lot of focus on important messaging. So I don't know where that misnomer comes from. And while you're answering that, I also am curious. There's a lot of, and I've never heard this directly from you, but I've heard this quite a few people in the party, that the caucus is causing a lot of divide in the party. And do you see that and understand where that misnomer is coming from too?
Well, I mean, I can tell you that, I certainly feel that individual caucus members have spread information about me that's not correct. There were a series of phone calls campaigning against me. That's one of those things that it's politics and you got to let it go. I mean, I don't like it, but, and they feel, that we do the same thing about them. And when I say me, I mean the LPPA or leadership. I think that less of that has occurred than, people think. But, at the same time, it's just a matter of we're in this abusive relationship. And until somebody says stop, we're not going to stop. We can keep going back and forth with questioning each other's motives. And that's the thing is I really feel that even the people that, I don't get along with, they want the best for this party. I mean, I have never called another member of this party specifically to trash talk somebody, and I never will. That's not how I operate. Was there a time a couple of years ago where I said something that I regret when I was drinking? I'm sure, and I've probably apologized to that person. In recent memory, that's just not how I act. There's been a lot of misinformation that goes both ways. Both sides of this issue feel the same way. You guys feel the same way as, the people on the other side of the divide feel. We just have to find ways to come together and stop. And I know that after everything that's happened, unity falls very flat. It's tough for me to talk about. But, at the end of the day, if we can just focus on one issue, that okay, we're going to win these 12 elections, or we're going to work on one of you guys' decrim projects, or we're going to come up with a social media strategy together, or whatever we're going to do. I mean, those steps are how I envision us moving forward. And I'm all ears on, whatever you guys would like to do. As far as, not being interested in running candidates, that's something that, I've only talked to, a few people, but, messaging is kind of what they pushed at me is the thing that we're not doing well enough. I guess maybe that, and I apologize if my perception is wrong, is that that's what you guys really care about. I've had the opportunity to meet with a few Mises members, but, certainly nowhere near the whole caucus. Elections is really important to me, as you all know. So messaging is not my forte. I just, hope that people who are better at it than me can step up and help with that.
Yeah, and I would say, definitely the Mises Caucus, messaging is something that we care about. But, we did spend $20,000 in 2020 supporting local candidates across the country, and we're on track to do about, to raise the bar to 30,000 this year. So, yeah, we definitely believe in electing people, especially at the local level, and that's where we focus.
I actually have told candidates to, seek you guys out for that, and that you do great work on that. So,
by the way, hey guys, sorry to jump in late there.
Hey, Rob.
How's everybody doing? Hi, Jen.
I'm going to pop off on it now that Rob's here. So,
thanks Mark. Appreciate it.
Love you, buddy.
Thanks, Mark. Take care.
You bring up a good point that a lot of times people talk about the Mises Caucus, and they say that messaging is really our focus, and I think in a large way it is. A lot of people that I talk to when we're bringing in people, and recruiting new members and doing calls, is something that they say is from the top down, from national down to the state level, is that the libertarian message seems to be compromised, or at least softened, for one reason or another, and that's something that the people who are coming in on through our way, the Mises Caucus, have a big interest in. And I'd like to talk a little bit about what we all mean and think of when we hear these terms bold and uncompromising messages, because I don't think ideologically I don't think that there's much difference in the party. I think the libertarian principles are pretty widespread. I think it's a methodological difference that we have. So what we mean, or what I mean at the very least, when I say bold and uncompromising messages, is that we stand for the principles of philosophical libertarianism, and we don't shy away from speaking them when we have the opportunity. I think it might be dangerous territory to get into, but the New Hampshire tweet that just came out recently caused quite a bit of stir. But the way that they went about it, I could have some revisions for their tactics, but the underlying principle of educational freedom is a libertarian principle, and it's one that we should be supporting. So what we mean by bold and uncompromising messages is saying we need to have choice, not necessarily the way that they did it, but it's not shying away from these issues and
Right.
speaking. That's what I mean at the very least by bold and uncompromising.
Let me
What do you
talk
think
about
that?
Let me
I'd like
talk
to
about
hear-
New Hampshire very briefly, if you'll let me, both as me as an individual and as the chair. As the chair, a lot of people have come to me and asked me to make a statement about it, and I don't feel that that's my role in any way, shape, or form to tell libertarians how to think about it. We had a situation back in 2018 where Arvin Bora, made the comment about soldiers being moralist murderers, and the LPPA board, which I was not on at the time, put out a resolution against it. And there was shrieking within the party. They don't speak for me. We can't believe this happened. One of the vice chairs at the time ended up resigning the kerfuffle. I think that when leadership does speak on behalf of membership like that, it's not good for the party. I think that it escalates things. If it was happening in our state, I might have to, say something, or we might as a board. I don't think I would say something. The board might have to address it. But, as far as, and I've had membership reach out to me. I've had other chairs of other states reach out to me. I have a candidate who's a liberty Republican on the ballot in my township reach out to me and say, is this what libertarians think? Now, on a personal note, it's classic macho flash. It is taking something that we agree with and saying it in the most flamboyant way possible to try to get a lot of attention. It's exactly what Arvin did. I don't agree with it. I don't like it. I do think that, we need to, I was 14 years old and working at an ice cream shop under the table, that's something we all agree with. But there is a point where, personally, I don't like it. And our candidates do have to answer for that when they're running for office. It comes up. Arvin's stuff still comes up all these years later, about age of consent and everything else. So, personally, I really don't like it. As the chair, I'm not going to speak for other libertarians, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Can we see public opinion on that question?
Public opinion.
What I was going to say is, if we're really going to talk about, with the whole messaging thing, and I completely understand, what you're saying, that counties and, national, or state level, they should not be, posting things that are based off of an opinion. It's an opinion to say the soldiers are blood-soaked monsters, but, you can agree that, these wars are wrong, but may not agree on that thing because you're basically, at that point, the soldiers are, held by gunpoint to commit murder for the state. So I think that's different. And then, another thing, when people at Mises, when we talk about wanting, strong and bold messaging, we don't just mean that on social media. We do realize that we have to run campaigns to really be able to get the message out. And even libertarians, whether you're pragmatic, socialist, or not, we recognize that because that's exactly why we run presidential campaigns. They do it to do the message. We know we're not going to win, but they're doing it to spread the message. So I think that's like another thing is like we want not so much like the Republican-like kind of campaign going forward with it. And that I think is a huge misconception when we talk about like with messaging, that people just automatically assume social media and being like keyboard warriors. And that's kind of like my thoughts on it all, like with that. But I will agree, like there's certain libertarian principles that like with wars, ending the drug on wars, victimless crimes that we should use for like state and county level, like social medias all across, but not exactly like in an opinionated way, because then you're not thinking for libertarians, you're saying what we truly believe without extra, as you said, flamboyant wording.
So our messaging should, stick to our platform.
But that's
sorry,
one thing.
I have a hound dog in my lap. I'm sorry about that. This is Dixie.
That's fine, but that is one.
Yeah.
One
I
thing
actually
have
put out
noticed, like libertarian candidates are like all across the board, like when it comes to that kind of messaging, and like some are like just barely like on the bottom line to like libertarian levels. Others are like way down there. So it's kind of like we need to establish a route to being like, this is what libertarian is. Libertarianism is. And it's pretty much got to be to the fullest extent of it.
I think what Matt's trying to say, real quick, just because I'll try to baseline this for you, Matt. I think what Matt's trying to say is to really narrow it down is no matter how rough the messaging may come out from someone, the fact of the matter is that the soulless murderer thing was an opinion. This may be it how the message was spread is a core fundamental libertarian message, right? Is school rights, children's rights, all that stuff, right? So it's just baseline, and the fact that any of our leadership should always get behind that strong message and push it out. So even if it's maybe you don't like the way it's said, then be like, all right, well, fine. This is how I would say it, though, and put that message out as a leadership for the state or party or whatever. That's my point. I think that's what Matt's point was trying to be, pretty much. Like it doesn't matter as long as the fundamentals should always matter and come first, and then everything else falls. I believe is what Matt was trying to say.
Well, let's try to turn this into something that can be productive here. How, if Mises people are concerned about messaging and they would like to see a bit more maybe direct or deliberate messaging, how can we get involved with the party to have that effect?
Number one, of course, is, the easiest way to get involved is directly with your county, because all of them, they have events, they have social media. Many of the counties do phone banking and things like that. At the state level, we have a media relations committee. We put out press releases. We're hoping to get our, social media ramped up a little bit more here. I think the main thing to understand is that you don't want your administrators to be the messengers. That never goes well. If I try to speak on behalf of the party, I might be more pragmatic on certain things, and I might be pretty radical on things that you wouldn't expect me to be. But either way, when a leader does that, you have people trying to rage quit the party. I actually put out a press release. I didn't write it. It was written for me, but I agreed 100% with it. It was, I don't know if anybody picked it up. I didn't hear, but it was just congratulating the voters for the ballot initiatives. And I signed it as the chair. And I felt very comfortable with that because that was something that the board had already made a decision that this is the messaging of the party. This is we're going to send out these postcards. We're going to tell people to vote yes, yes, yes. Come on, Dixie. You can't be in my lap right now. Dixie, actually, her owner was one of the 600,000 Americans who died of COVID. And she was full of puppies, and she came to live with us. She's a Treen Walker Coonhound, and she just decided that she wants to be in this podcast. So yeah, I have a boxer lab mix too.
I've got my dog on my feet here too. So
yeah, I mean, she doesn't take no for an answer. She's very, very stubborn. So I apologize. I have a dog in my lap, but I mean, when it
So-
comes to messaging, like, I just think that we need to be very careful to stick to our platform.
Yeah.
It's
Well-
okay to put things out as the party, but I don't think that I should necessarily do it as the chair unless it's a special circumstance or it's a situation where I have a reporter with a microphone in my face and, I need to, say something right then and there.
I think you make a good point, and I'm not so sure that the executive committee really should be doing that. But if the Mises members want to be having this impact, and you mentioned getting involved at the county level, I'd like to talk a little bit about how exactly you can go about getting in the county level and have an effect on the messaging, because I think assisting candidate
Right.
elections, you can have a real big impact that way. Getting into
Yeah.
their social media, how do you see, how would you guide people who would like to get into a messaging role?
So if you really want to be in a messaging role, like really, really are passionate about that, the best thing you can do is run for office. Run for the biggest office that you can find. Run for state rep, run for state senator, run for U.S. Congress, run for statewide if you have it in you, because you're actually going to get media in those roles. And we're getting better at even just getting picked up in the local newspapers and things like that. I mean, if you want to spread the message, as a candidate is probably where you're going to get the biggest platform. You can, I was just at in Delaware, and Steve Sheets gave a great talk on it. He was talking about when he was out at a protest rally, he might have gotten through to a dozen people who were, half of them were irritated with him because he had a bullhorn and was shouting. But then when he started running for office, he found that people actually listened to what he had to say. Being a political candidate and having that weight behind you, for some reason, people are more willing to listen to whatever you're going to do. As far as your county committee, you can always reach out to your vice chair. That would be Adam Reinhart, Bill Sloan, or Sam Robb, and ask them where your county is and where they meet if you don't already know. Most of the counties have Facebook pages. We try to keep up their schedules on the state website, but we really, really could use a scheduler who wants to, handle all that stuff, because sometimes it's hard for us to keep up. And if the county changes and they don't let us know, we may have a wrong date on there. But if you just go to meetings, and tell people this is what I'm interested in the Libertarian Party, if you jump in and do the work, you're going to move up very, very quickly. I mean, that was how I was elected to the XCOM within a year. If you just show up and start doing it, nobody is probably going to stop you, especially at the county level. They're going to be grateful.
I was elected to the outreach committee of the first meeting that I went to. So, people talk a lot about it, Tom, and I think the big division of Mises and somebody, a non-Mises member, about how to run these campaigns is, some people think that the bold messaging strategy is how you reach new libertarians and bring them to the party, and the other view is that you need to make the party compatible with people's current views to walk them into that. And I would say that perhaps there's a role for both of those in bringing people into the party. And you identify races that are winnable, and you identify races that aren't, and you can use different strategies and on different.
I think it's somewhere in the middle. You don't want to use bold messaging to the point where you're only talking to your echo chamber. Going back to the New Hampshire tweet, when you talk about when you say it the way that they said it, people automatically think we have to protect our children from libertarians. And that's not what we're trying. I mean, the people who are already in the echo chamber, we understood what that meant. But the other 95% of the population didn't. I mean, we needed to say it in a way that we were going to, that they were going to listen and not shut us out.
But to that, though, people are listening. That actually got us nationwide coverage over it. And with that, they did follow up.
No, I disagree.
There was negative and there was positive. Yeah. There was also
I saw the Boston Globe article.
There was also completely unbiased, on Fox News, and they're completely unbiased towards us. I mean, look they have Spike Cohen on all the time, regularly, and right there, that may have caused some controversy where it's people instantly backlash. They hear something, they're like, "Oh, I don't think I like that," so they freak out. But then they follow up on it, "Oh, okay, I see what you're talking about," because they followed up with, "Oh, well, I have a 13-year-old that can't work in a flower shop, and they want to work. Why can't they?" That's different.
Exactly.
There's very specific things, like sometimes you do have to say things to open up the door to a conversation. There's always going to be negative feedback.
There's too much. I'm sorry. Hold on. We're all talking over each other. Hold on.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, Jacob, you go. Go.
Well, I mean, a good example of that is like when Ron Paul, I forget like the exact year in debate, but like he got up and was being asked about our military over in the Middle East. And, you know, at that time, the things he got up and said about how the reason that these people are that they hate us and they're attacking us isn't because of our freedoms. It's because it's blowback for all the crap that our military has done. At that point in time, like that really upset a lot of people. I mean, like Giuliani was like, "Will Ron Paul please apologize for his complete disrespect for the troops?" And like that was a very unpopular thing to say. So sometimes I do think
it's like with Harry Brown after 9/11. The day after, his message freaked people out. 10 years later, they love it.
Yeah. So, and it's not that I'm saying like you should Ron Paul did craft his message very well. So I'm not saying
right.
There's.
I think that his message was different than saying moralist murderers. There's a difference.
Well,
right.
I think that the New Hampshire tweet is a really good example to use because on its face, it is both beneficial and detrimental because this is a complex multivariate issue, and the way it was stated didn't afford it the due care in which it was owed, but its premise and its purpose was, in my opinion, correct. So, the statement that they made did open the door, I think, for a good conversation about what this really is, and we should talk about, and it gives our candidates an opportunity maybe to talk about what is the role. But I think it would be wrong to disavow or to separate ourselves from a libertarian principle of educational freedom, which is right, from the perhaps novice or not well thought out delivery in how I see it.
And the other thing,
the principle was right.
The other thing I'd like to quickly add to this is that there's two groups of people we're trying to bring into the party, and yes, there are people who aren't libertarians who are either non-voting, non-registered people or people with one of the duopoly parties, but then there's also people who are libertarians, like in the broader movement, but have never been part of the party before. And I think like a lot of us here in the Mises Caucus, we really want to bring a lot of those people who have for the longest time said that they're libertarians in their personal political philosophy, but they've not wanted to be part of the party. And a lot of the common complaints you'll get from those type of people is that they think the Libertarian Party just doesn't really do a good job of promoting the libertarian message. And so, that's so.
I have something to say about that.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
We did a huge phone banking a few years back, calling all of our expired members. We met several weekends and asked them why they left or why they were not involved. And very often we got the answer that it was because of the poor messaging, particularly during the Irvin era. So I think that you drive as many people away as you bring in, because I've seen it on both sides. I would also say that in any group, being involved in party politics is brutal. It's not for the faint of heart. The movement's always going to be bigger than the party. Do we need to bring people in? Yes, but I think that, as far as per capita, libertarians are probably more involved in the party, than they are in some of the other parties, population wise. I think it's a very noble goal. I do think that we should go for it. One of the other things that I wanted to bring into this, which is kind of, backtracking, but when everything happened with Arvin, I really panicked. I had a hard day, and one of the chairs of the counties that I organized quit. And I went back and forth with Dr. Lark, and he was, cautioning me that this is cyclical in the party. It will come and go. And this time around, I don't have the feelings that I did last time, because I understand what Dr. Lark was saying, because now I have the experience.
But the thing is, with Arvin, though, he is not libertarian principles on that. no one in the Mises Caucus like agrees like with any of that whole like age of consent laws or anything like
age
that.
of consent, he followed up and backed up with, with like Romeo and Juliet, like a 17 and 19-year-old. That's what he backed it up with.
But there's also the statute of limits that we have with the 3-year thing. So like his argument with that in defense is already kind of irrelevant.
I think it's a bit more of a complex issue than that.
And
right. I mean, they're all
complex
about
issues. And I agree. Like as libertarians, we don't agree on so many things, and we often shoot ourselves in the foot as we're just getting a step ahead. But as you have been saying, the biggest thing that brings people in is messaging and running a campaign, so that we should go out and run a campaign at the biggest level that we can think of, and we possibly can.
Well, it's both. I mean, you want the small ones and the big ones. They're both very important. But messaging, the bigger campaign, sure.
You did acknowledge earlier that once you get like any run like a bigger campaign, that's where you actually get all the news coverage. But then you've also said about using a lot of money towards small level uncontested races, but it's not a secret that as a Libertarian Party compared to the big two, we're broke. As you said this, no matter what, if in an uncontested race, Libertarian or not, no matter who it is, if they're the only name there, people are voting for it, and they're pretty much guaranteed to win. And if they don't, they have to appoint people, so they'll appoint the person that was on the ballot. So do you not agree that it would be kind of a waste of money to be funding these campaigns that are uncontested to the extent like we should be focusing on them, but if the message gets across more and we get more media attention for running these bigger contested races where we can get the message out, should we not equally and fund that somewhat, maybe a little bit more, because it's a much wider distance and coverage area than we should for these uncontested? Like, I think we should focus on that as much as we do for the uncontested.
Okay, so for an uncontested race, we can put somebody on the ballot for, between like $50 and $80. That $50 is not going to do much at all for a large campaign. If we were to spread that out all of our candidates, that's not even going to buy them yard signs. It's very, very important that we have libertarians serving in government, even at these this is how we build the farm team. Like if we can win these races and we have somebody on town council who does a great job and manages to, decriminalize in their community or roll back taxes or stop wasteful spending or, any libertarian principle that they can apply to it, we can say, see right there, that's how a libertarian is going to govern and they're in office. It's not just a philosophical measure at that point. And as far as running campaigns, that campaign from August until November is a lot of work, but I guarantee you that serving in public office for 4 years is much, much more work than that. You actually have to be able to compromise in real time to get things passed. It's not an easy job. And the other thing that, I would say that, if you, obviously, the messaging campaigns are important, but that they're more important for building our party. Like a few years ago, I would have told you that I don't care about president. I don't understand.
But isn't building our party the most prevalent thing? So it makes it easier to win more races.
Right. Well, the thing is now that, I've got a few more years experience, I disagree with, the person I was 2 or 3 years ago, because I saw through this last presidential race how many new counties we built based on the activists that came to us. And those people are going to run and win those local offices. Once you have a libertarian serving in your community and they know that we're not unicorns that live on Facebook and Twitter, and they actually start to listen to some of our policy positions, it's going to be easier for the next person who comes in a contested race. Look at Kara Schultz at National. She ran for council, she won, and then she got another libertarian elected to her council. That's how we're going to do it. You have to start at the grassroots, and by putting someone in supervisor or council or auditor and normalizing it in the community, that's how you're going to win the next one, and we're going to end up winning a countywide. And I believe that we will send somebody to Harrisburg by 2026. I really do.
So, I completely agree with that we have to focus on the small level, but also at the same time, at the small level, we're focusing on uncontested.
Well,
at the small level, like the city council levels, like the two Kara that you mentioned, and what was her name out in California that we backed and won, and then her mayor switched to Libertarian. I can't think of her name, and also Trisha Butler. So should we also focus on contested small? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So I think just as I think people outside of the Mises Caucus misunderstand what we mean by our message focus, I also think that sometimes we on our side may not give proper weight to the idea and concept of winning local elections and putting people actually in government. I think that I've been saying this to a lot of people, and I've been trying to develop this idea more, and so I can say it in a the best way. But I really think these are two complementary devices that the party can be using to walk hand in hand into success. We at the Mises Caucus know, most of us coming into the Ron Paul campaign, that messaging is very effective. And we are seeing the growth that we're having, and messaging is effective. It's a great tool at bringing new people into the party, but it's also an effective tool to put people into government who have libertarian ideals, who are going to be doing the right things in their communities. I mean, that's the bottom up policy that we do support at Mises. We supported it. Mark Pizzago supported it. That's why we supported him for chair when running against Jenn. But it is important to get people elected. And when we can say that we have all of these libertarians elected, plus we have the strong messaging to go with them, we have a whole bunch of people elected that we got elected to the Molten Maneuver, plus we have people running the strong messaging campaign. This is what I was trying to get at about these are two complementary devices. Let's put people in office and let's identify the races we can win and use it to preach the message as vigorously as possible. These seem like complementary tools and not opposing ideologies.
Yeah, I gotta agree with Rob. There's no such thing as bad press. I mean, I'm a comic, right? So like, I mean, if a comic gets canceled, whatever that means to anybody, a lot of times what happens is a lot of people who had no idea this person existed all of a sudden goes, "Who is this person?" And they go over there and go, "Oh, this comic's actually really funny," and then they get way more fans than they do get the canceled people who come after them. I think that's why the New Hampshire tweet hit hard, and I think that was important that it hit hard. I think messaging has to hit hard, especially now when you have the left and right just constantly lying about us. You had what's his face, Brennan, just call us domestic terrorists a few months ago. I mean, so yeah, the messaging is hard to get. It's hard, but I think it's super important, and that falls in though with electing local candidates. And I think you still need candidates with the good strong message, and not to be afraid to go. Actually, you know what? No, I double down on the New Hampshire tweet. Actually, I agree. And say why you agree. Maybe clear it up, but don't shy away from a conflicting message, is my opinion.
And when a candidate is speaking a strong message, doesn't it give credence to them when the party that they're speaking it from has people elected in office?
Yeah, I'm still kind of stuck on Joe Ben Wagner's comment there. I'm sorry. He was talking about, secession. If we were to make that a platform plank, we could actually be disaffiliated as a political party in Pennsylvania. That's against our Constitution. So we need to be careful as a political party with that language. We could just be disbanded. So that's a concern of mine. But that being said, I strongly feel the purpose of a political party is to compete in electoral politics. That is to get people elected to office. It's to, put our people in public office. It's to build towards bigger offices. There are lots of think tanks out there that do wonderful messaging, when you're talking about, the Mises Institute and Cato and Reason, that are really, really good at that stuff too. I don't look at it as the primary focus. And, maybe that's why I'm, more pragmatic than, Mises. I don't look at it as the primary focus of a political party. Like, this is the political arm, so we should be running candidates. Not that it's not important, because it is, but it shouldn't be the primary focus, if that makes sense.
I guess, my pushback against that is that, I think libertarians, what separates us from the duopoly, from the Republican Party or the Democrat Party, is our philosophy and is our messaging. And some of the messaging sometimes that just as a personal pet peeve of mine is when people focus so much on saying like, well, we're the third option and we're here to bust the duopoly, and it's like, I get where they're coming from, but it's like, I'm a libertarian not because I just wanted a third option, and I'm a libertarian not just because I was like, there's just two parties dominating and we need more options. Like, it's like, no, I'm a libertarian because the philosophy of libertarianism is actually what solves the problems that we're facing in our society. So it's like if I'm going to be part of the political arm of the libertarian movement, I think that we need to run on that philosophy and that messaging so that we are distinguishing ourselves from those two other parties more than just saying, hey, we're a third option, because I just don't think that is a very compelling argument. Because it's just like, I mean, what if we had a third party that was just as bad as the other two parties? Like, I don't want the Libertarian Party to be that. I want it to stand for what its namesake is, if that makes sense.
We have to prove that our philosophy works, though. I mean, that's what it really comes down to. And there's two ways that we do that. We either, have the coalitions where we influence policy, or we get people elected and we actually show them what we can do. I mean, that's what the political arm is for. We have to back up that philosophy. We can say all day long that, it would be better if we're more free, but we actually need to make people more free. That doesn't always, we should be better at legislative action too. We should be building those coalitions to go after, things that we agree on. I know that, Matt Rickline and, to a lesser extent me, has been working with Gun Owners of America up in Carbon County, on their Second Amendment sanctuaries. And that's, exactly the kind of stuff that we should be doing to try to influence public policy. But then we can say, this was a libertarian win. Like, look at how much better people's lives are because of it. We need to be able to show those wins, and we need to be able to walk the walk and not just talk the talk, I guess, is my concern, in the next, 10 years of strategy for our party.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I mean, the Mises Caucus does make, like, one of the things we are active in is issue coalitions, and like on our website you can go to it. We have like an issue campaigns tab, and like we have one for abolish lockdowns, we have one for keeping guns free, decriminalize psychedelics and cannabis, reforming the criminal justice system,
jury nullification.
Yeah, so issue coalitions are definitely a big part of what we at the Mises Caucus are definitely about.
Sounds like you guys need to be involved in legislative action.
Very good.
No, I'm kind of stupid. I can't, but Rob can. That's more his lane.
That's like our most repeated phrase in this. In so far, the third episode of our podcast is Adam Nutter going, "Oh man, I'm stupid."
If it's
Mom always says stupid is as stupid does.
That's one thing about, being in the Libertarian Party is I just can't believe how many brilliant people I'm surrounded by. Like, I don't know you well, Adam. I doubt you're stupid. But it just is amazing. And the type of people that respond to these Molten Maneuver letters, they're like, self-built CEOs, and they're chemists, and they're, some of them are just, business owners that have been like, they built up their business in their community. They're engineers. Like, I just have been amazed at the level of people who are like, yes, I'm libertarian. A lot of them, when they respond to the Molten Maneuver letters, they didn't really see us doing anything as a political party. And then we reached out to them and said, hey, run for office. And they're like, yes, this is what political parties should be doing. You get occasional crazies too. There was one guy who wanted to outlaw cigarettes and marijuana. And we were like, it's probably not a good idea for you to run as a libertarian. But then there was the other guy who has been to every council meeting for the past decade. He is mowing lawns for all of the elderly in his neighborhood. And it never occurred to him that he could run for office as a libertarian win until he got that letter. And he is serving in council now. These are the type of people that some of them, are retirees, some of them are just getting back or just going off to college, or community college and staying local, and they run for office. But the caliber of people who respond just never fails to amaze me. And the caliber of people I'm surrounded with in these committee meetings, also never fails to amaze me. Whether we have, college degrees or we went to the school of hard knocks, like everybody is just like a brilliant person that I work with. Like, it's not what you get in the normal crosscut of society.
Very good.
So
Well,
as we move forward and we have like the most elected libertarians in the country within our state,
We already
do you
do.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, and like as we're
We're
talking about
trying
like
to
these
outdo the rest
campaigns,
combined.
the ones that are elected and things that they're doing, I know personally, like even like with being in the LPPA myself, I don't know many of them. I don't know about what they're doing. Do you think we should start like possibly using the state social media to advertising them more,
Yeah.
even as they are elected, as to what they are doing, the policies they are pushing, the things they are changing, like what it actually is that we are doing besides just getting elected to an uncontested position?
Matt, that's one. I think the counties could do a lot better job in interacting with each other and
That's true, but a lot of
So
counties don't even have social media, or they don't use them at all. But I'm saying maybe we should use a lead by example kind of situation here.
So yeah, it's very difficult. You know that central planning doesn't work. So it is difficult at the state level to track a bunch of auditors, in your township. It is something that we could really use help with the counties. But one of the things that I really wanted to do in 2019 that I just haven't got to because we don't have enough people and, I can't do everything is, setting up a support network for our libertarian electeds, a place where we can just get together and talk, whether it be a mail group or a Facebook group or whatever they want to do. We have mostly auditors. We have plenty of counsel. And I know that some of us do reach out to each other when we have a problem within our community. And we have a few people, like Nate Covington, who just ran up in 22 in the special election. He's an auditor and he has like a great blog. And when and he writes about the things that he's found. And Jake Town did the same thing when he was an auditor. He talked about the $30,000 printer and why his township had to have this and the fact that they wouldn't let him see it to even know that it exists, and all the troubles he had with just trying to get records. My township is very good with me. They let me see anything I want to see. They let me ask any questions I want to ask. They spend too much money, but it's not my decision how they spend the money. It's just my job to make sure that they're not spending it for things that wasn't appropriated for, and they're not doing anything untoward. So yeah, that's something that we could definitely use help with. I know the National Party is doing it now, which is kind of why I backed off, because really, you figure that we have like 220 or 240 libertarians in the country. Like 80 of them are here in Pennsylvania. Like if the National Party is already building this network, and we're going to have 100 more. Like, we may very well after this election have more elected here than the rest of the country combined. So, we may want to do a homegrown, network like that. But if we already have the infrastructure, we may want to look at what they have rather than recreating the wheel. I'm really excited about the project. I haven't had much time to talk to them about it. But yeah, building a network, tracking people, asking them just to stay in touch. I know that in some places, the counties were a lot better about integrating their new electeds than they were in others. Berks County did a great job. I want to say that I spent $800 or $900. I paid for the Berks mailing myself. They just had a huge pile of letters. I'm telling you what, like Exeter Township Auditor, like there were like 120 letters. Like I ended up tossing half of them out because we were going to get too many people responding to that one job. But they elected 11 people. And I think a few of those people may not have actually taken office, but they elected 11. And I know that a lot of those people, Pete Schwartz is one of them, got active in their county. And there's other places where we never saw from or heard from these, elected officials ever again. So, I think the following up with them is better done locally, but, anything that the state can do to assist with infrastructure, we absolutely should. And I'm always open to ideas.
Very good.
Cool. Well, Jen, I want to thank you for coming on and talking with us tonight. And there's, I think we're, libertarians. We're often going to be people who are, we're more fractious, I think, than some people, and we're always going to have our disagreements. And like we talked about, I think in this conversation, like different focuses, different points of view on things. But I'm hoping that as the year progresses, that we can find ways to work together, that more people in the Mises Caucus can be brought in to help out in the things that are going on in the state and at their county level. And excited to see what comes about over the next year.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for listening to me ramble. I do a lot of that in my unsophisticated accent.
Oh, thanks, Jen.
Yeah,
All right,
I really appreciate it. You guys were nice to me. You didn't even ask me about Maj.
I mean, if you want to talk about Maj.
No,
I mean, we can open up a whole nother can of worms. So
no, you know what? Maj does great Second Amendment work. Him and I personally are kind of, like fire and gasoline, but that's okay. You don't always have to get along personally and be everybody's best friend forever. I don't have a problem with Maj.
Cool. All right, everyone. Well, I guess that's it for tonight. Thanks again, Jen, for being here and everybody else. And like always, go out there, people, take human action, and have a good night.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Good night.